Welcome back to Nick Lenz's Comic Corner, Classic Less Known Classics. This is episode number 1849 and Doubleshot number 1743, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, 43. I have a Spider-Man trade and a Daredevil trade. Now, for Spider-Man, I'm doing the Epic Collection stuff. Though I'm doing this one, the following one, and the one that comes up this one is Volume 6. And then I'll jump to a different one. Now, there's not many of these I have to cover because here's the thing. The first four, I've technically covered these already because I covered the issues basically review-wise. And if you're curious, though, how many of these Epic Collections are there for Amazing Spider-Man? There are 21. I have reviewed a total number of 2. So far, yes. The only ones I have reviewed so far for Amazing Spider-Man have been Venom and Assassination Nation, and that's it. Just those two, just 18 and 19. Actually, it goes down to 26, which goes straight to like 1994. Yes. That I'll probably get to eventually. There are some of these basically where I have to cover like 1 or 2 things for these Epic Collections before I basically just cap them off, per se. Yes. Now, this one is the 5th one. The first 4, I have covered these ones already. Mainly the Masterworks stuff. That's mainly the reason I'm able to cover these stuff. So, now, this book contains issues 68 to 85 and the 5th annual. Now, the 5th annual is simply Spider-Man versus the Red Skull. No, it's not Johann Schmidt. It's not the Nazi one. No, it's the communist one. Because this guy was the one who basically ordered the death of Richard and Mary Parker. And we also have meet up with the guy who actually gave him the... I think his name was Graves, I believe his name was. The guy who actually arranged for... Who actually leaked info to the Red Skull about the Parkers and led to ordering the deaths of the Parkers via plane crash. It's an excellent annual. Sadly enough, this will be the last annual Stan Lee would ever write for the series. Because, here's the thing. There were annuals that come after this one, but annuals 6 to 9 were not original stories. They were, in fact, reprints. Yes, that's the thing with annual 6 to 9. As for why, it could be because it was a cheap way to basically reprint old material. But wasn't it number 10 released in the 70s, where... we finally got original story again, and that one debuted a character known as The Fly. I'll get to more to him later on. Now, as for the main story itself, now, aside from the fact this book does contain number 5, it mainly contains, like I said, 68 to 85. Now, it does start with the annual. Now, the artwork is mostly done by John Romita Sr. and John Buscema, with also Larry Lieber and Mark Severn. Now, the annual I've already discussed just a moment ago, so... And this annual has been loosely adapted for an episode of the animated series, basically explaining the backstory of the Parkers in like one of the episodes from the animated series. Like reading this stuff basically sees like, wow, we get so much stuff here for these characters. Next we have like Crisis on Campus. Yeah, 68 to about 75 is a multi-part story arc dealing with the Life Tablet. Yes, a tablet that Nick Spencer brought back in modern day for reasons not really explained. Yes, seriously. Now, my friend Tiffy is not a fan of the whole stuff related to the tablet because he feels as though that the tablet basically has no use in modern day Spider-Man comics. I think basically Nick Spencer did an okay job with it, though it did serve its purpose, though it was a version of the tablet, not the same one from this story here. That one was mostly there to resurrect Richard Fisk. Now, this is known as a Lifeline Tablet. This issue here was his debut. Yes, its debut. Where it is here, from issues 68 to 75, at first you have Wilson Fisk going after the damn thing, And then you have Superman getting his hands on it. Now, the Superman stuff that was adapted for the animated series, except they took out Mountain Marco, who was actually in the story itself. Mountain Marco in the comics was Superman's bodyguard. In the animated series, it was Tombstone. For reasons. First, he started out Wilson Fisk learning about the Life Tomb. He's like, okay, time for a workout. And, well, he beats the crap out of his goons. And, well, then we get used to, well, we have Peter meeting Randy Robinson for the first time. Yes, this is the issue where he meets him for the first time. Is this Randy Robinson's debut? No. As a matter of fact, his debut was actually the very previous issue. Yep. Yeah, believe it or not, issue 6 that was his previous was actually his actual debut. And this issue here was basically his like full debut. The stuff in here with May being ill. There are protesters because it's the 60s, why back not? And of course, basically Wilson Fisk tries to steal a tablet. And of course, Spider-Man is indirectly blamed for it, even though the Kingpin himself was seen there by multiple witnesses. And his part here is only for the first like few issues, and then he gets replaced by Superman, who actually makes his debut in this very storyline. Yes, Superman himself, he always appears to be very old. Yes. You can kind of think of basically this as the Lifeline story arc. Mm-hmm. Now you probably think, okay, when does the Kingpin himself get dropped from the story? Well, he gets dropped after issue 70. Yep. Or basically, Spider-Man's blamed for the theft of the tablet, even though he had nothing to do with it at all. But after issue 70, like, he doesn't return again until issue number, well, oh man, a flashback here. Though, this issue here, 70, is also the debut of the beautiful Vanessa Fisk, who is no longer alive. Nope, she isn't. She actually does play a role in basically stuff related to Kingpin. She has been sort of an integral part in his history. At several points, basically, she's either been disappeared, no longer around, so Kingpin basically sleep title with Mary in Daredevil comics. Yes, so Spider-Man does get the tablet back, but then, like issue 71, for strange reasons, he ends up fighting Quicksilver for an issue. Yeah, seriously. Yeah, it seems like, okay, you think it's wrapped up issue 70, not really. Kingpin breaks out, but... And of course, you have Daily Bugle car there. 71 is simply... And of course, you have hints of Harry Osborn himself, suspiciously might finding out that Peter Parker might be Spider-Man. You have Quicksilver versus Spider-Man, which... Excuse me. I think this was the first that Quicksilver met Spider-Man. Yes, so he decided to go after him. And, well, James is in the hospital, so basically, Rob Robinson take over. So, and then 72, you have the debut of the Shocker. Yes, the Shocker. Are you thinking, really? 72 is his debut? Yes, seriously. Yeah, actually, no, it's not his debut. Scratch that. It was actually back in... Let's see. It was in issue 46. That was his debut. So, I thought this was my mistake on that part. Mm-hmm. But yeah, this was his debut, and then he appeared in issue 72. And here's the thing. His next appearance would not be until issue 151. No, seriously. That was the next time he appeared. Because that was back in 1975. This issue was released in 1969. So it took him 6 years to make a return. Yep, 6 years. So yeah, Return of the Shocker. Just cuz. Great to see the guy again. Mm-hmm. Though this is his secondary appearance. And then finally we get the 73, which we have the Silvermane story arc here. Mm-hmm. And if you're curious, though, this is Mountain Man Marco, who, like I just said, in the animated series, when they adapted this three-parter, they replaced him with Tombstone. My guess is because he's more popular of a character. That's probably the reason why they decided to do it. But yeah, this is part of the Lifeline storyline. And this also is the debut of Superman and Caesar Cesario. The Big C is what he's called. He, of course, is still kind of around to this very day. He's appeared sporadically over the years. His last appearance was in the Lifeline miniseries. Yes, that was his last appearance. As in the case of Matt Marco, which this was his first appearance, 73. He does have a cousin, Mario Marco, who made his debut in the pages of Thunderbolts. He appeared for one issue, and he died off in the same issue. Yes. Excuse me. Now you probably think, okay, is Mountain Marco still around? Like, yes, he is. As a matter of fact, his most recent appearance was in, get this, Devil's Reign, Moon Knight. Yep. So, and here's the thing. After the three-parter wrapped up, his next appearance will not be until Power Man Iron Fist 61. He appeared for like 4 issues of the series. Then he appeared for Web of Spider-Man 82, the 2 issues of Lifeline, a couple issues of Alias, 2 issues of Cage, 500 Amazing Spider-Man. He appeared sporadically over the years, like after this three-parter wrapped up. Like, okay, this is like 1969, and his next appearance is 61 of Power Man Iron Fist, which came out like a decade later. Yeah, that's the weird thing. Like, you have this guy appear in here, and then, like, it takes him 10 years to make a return to comics. Yes, 10 years. This is an excellent story, which also briefly features the return of the Lizard. Yes, the Lizard. Oh, and by the way, what this of course, this whole thing with Captain Stacy in the storyline too. Basically, it's kind of hints there that he might be killed off. He might disappear really soon. Also, I'm not really a fan of the coloring in here, where this is how they color black people in the book. I am not a fan of this coloring. Yes, he looked a lot better later on. And this here, that is Silvermane. And if you're curious though, does he still look old? The answer is yes. Yes, he does. And this is a classic three-parter, this one is. And despite the fact he apparently somewhat dies at the end of this three-parter, his next appearance is not until, get this, Daredevil 123. No, seriously, that was his next appearance. Yeah, he appears in this issue here. Somebody is like an old Italian mobster. Mm-hmm. Currently, the guy's a cyborg. Yep, seriously, the guy's a cyborg. Yeah, after he next appeared in Daredevil 120, 123, and they finally returned Amazing Spider-Man in issue 177, which was 8 years later. Yes, after previous appearing in the pages of Daredevil. Why in the world was he fighting Daredevil? Because of Hydra. Yeah, apparently Tony has been made part of Hydra for some strange reason. After being there for a few issues. He also was integral part of the creation of, get this, Cloak and Dagger. Yep. And you might ask, is he still around? Yep. Most recent appearance, issue 4 of the most recent volume for Silk, which came out last year. Yep, that was his most recent appearance. So I'm not really sure why in the world it took him 6 years to make a return to the comics. Yeah, I don't really know what was the reason for it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, apparently he was like Supreme Hydra, where it took him like 8 years to return, which it's weird to say the least. But this is an excellent three-parter. I've kind of talked about this before in the Lifeline trade review. Mm-hmm. But yeah, a lot of the stuff that happens in this story arc is basically seen in that two-parter for the series. Also, they gave him a daughter, which he doesn't have in the comic. He doesn't have any kids. Not that I know of, anyways. Yeah, and then pretty much right after this three-parter wraps up, with 75, which, like I said, classic story arc here. In the show, he didn't technically die. He was returned. He was basically like reduced to a baby. Yep, and this leads into a fight with a lizard in issue 76. Yep, a fight with a lizard in New York City. And yes, this coloring here is a lot better. That's much better coloring than basically coloring gray. Yeah, there's also stuff here with basically Gwen being unhappy with Pete at this point in time, though they kind of reconcile after a brief scuffle. Yeah, and then all of a sudden, basically during the fight between Spider-Man and the Lizard, the Human Torch shows up. Yes, the Human Torch. They team up, and, well... Oh, in case you're curious, though, where the heck is Mary Jane Watts in all this? She's off someplace. She's not in these issues at all. Nope. And after they finish up with that, and then we have the Prowler. Yes, the Prowler. A guy who is still around. Yes, he is still around to this very day. Now, starts out sort of like a villain. This technically is his debut appearance. It makes debut as a villain. Though he does turn over a leap, become sort of an anti-hero. Currently, the guy is the Hornet. Yep, he is currently the Hornet. And basically, in the case of his attire, he made all this himself. He's a genius inventor. But the only reason he left a crime because his boss thought he was just a window washer and he should get back to work with all his cool stuff he made. Nope, committed crimes. Though he was never technically arrested for it and he did retire. Yeah, and basically, like in the case of some of our characters, he didn't really appear much. He's had a couple solo books himself. Last being a few years ago. And he appeared just for these 2 issues, and his next actual appearance not being until issue 87, which I'll probably discuss that in the next next volume for this Epic collection. His next appearance, actually. Let's have it here with Flash Thompson, where him basically came back from Vietnam, and then basically at the end of this stuff, he goes back to Vietnam. The Prowler story is really, according to rumor I heard, that the whole idea of the Prowler was actually Jeremy Jr.'s idea. Yeah, it was suggested by him, but... It's interesting, though, that Jeremy Jr., a guy who is still active in comics this very day, and yet it was suggestion by Junior for Senior to create this character. His costume changed a little bit over the years, but yeah. Good story arc here. Takes a little for him to come back, though. Yep, and then pretty much after this 2-parter wraps up, and then issue 80, this kind of leaves a little more stuff with, this is the beginning of a 2-parter where you have George Stacy being accused of theft, and it turns out it's actually the Chameleon. Yep, the Chameleon is back in issue 80. It had been a while. Yep. Yeah, and by the way, his last appearance prior to this one was back in Tales to Astonish number 66. So basically, it had been 4 years since his last appearance. Yeah, 4 years since the last appearance of the Chameleon. Yeah, for some reason, like, okay, it's kind of like with Electro, where apparently it got moved over to other book for some strange reason. I have no idea why in the world this is. Yeah, it's like, okay, let's appear for 2 issues of Amazing Spider-Man, and his last appearance back in issue 15, which was released in 1964, mind you. He did appear in the annual. I think he appeared like in a flashback. Actually, it was just a profile, but yeah, so after this, it seems like this was his first appearance in the book in 5 years. Yeah, about 5 years. Actually, about 6 years, excuse me. Yeah, great to see Return of the Chameleon. And then we have the very next issue. Like, after this whole thing straightened out with Flash Thompson, Peter and Gwen make up, and they go, oh yeah, it's a chameleon all along. Great standalone issue. And then issue 81, the debut of the original Kangaroo. Yes, I say the original Kangaroo because this guy's dead now. Yeah, he actually died. He got himself cybernetically modified by Dr. Jonas Hathrow. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And here's the thing. After this issue here, he would not appear again until issue 126. Where he died. Yeah. Apparently Jerry Conway dusted this guy off first time in 3 years and he's been seen. And he popped up like a couple more times after that. Essential She-Hulk, Human Torch. They finally came up again in the penultimate issue of Prowler Volume 2. Yeah. The Kangaroo is another one of these guys who was a former wrestler who became a criminal. They did this thing with the Grizzly with Jerry Conway. Jerry Conway wrote the book. Yeah, basically, they gave the Grizzly a very similar style backstory to the Kangaroo. Mm-hmm. Well, he killed off the Kangaroo during his run. Yep. Then we also may have a heart attack, a recurring trope that happened for years. They stopped doing it in recent times. Yes. Me. And in 82, we have an appearance by Electro. Yep. Yes, he makes a return here. Yes, Electro. And his previous appearance was back in Daredevil and number 1. Yep. So I guess a quick stop by Amazing Spider-Man before I move back over to Daredevil, which I had previously covered his appearance there. Yeah, it's kind of like, okay, let's have him pop up for Amazing Spider-Man before he appears again in the pages of Daredevil. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and for Spider-Man, he kind of forgot that Dylan was in fact the Electro. Yeah, and the thing is, the last time that, Spider-Man fought Electro was back in number 1 for Amazing Spider-Man. Yep. And the next time he would not fight him again until Marvel Team Up 56. Yep, that was next time he fought Electro. Yeah, it's kind of interesting, though, about Electro. It's kind of like, oh, let's create Electro despite the fact he's a noteworthy Spider-Man villain. Let's have him fight also Daredevil for some strange reason. We fought him several times over the years. And also briefly fight the Punisher in the 2010s. Yes. It's an okay standalone issue, per se. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's an okay standalone issue. Nothing really home out here, aside from the fact that May's healthcare is taken over by Medicaid, which that's definitely true. And then we get basically 83-85, a 3-part story. We have this guy called the Schemer. Who is the Schemer, you might ask? Well, they don't reveal that until issue 80-5. Yeah, the Schemer. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, this is when they identify Vanessa Fisk by name. Yep, and he's this mysterious, cool villain. Like, he's a threat to the Kingpin's crime wave. Who he is? Who is the schemer? It is Kingpin's own son, Richard Fisk. Yeah, this is Richard Fisk. This was his first code name he introduced. That was introduced for him. They tried hitting his father. The other, of course, being the Rose, wearing a purple mask, white suit, and carried a rose with him. Call himself the Rose. Yep. Yeah. And of course, also, in the case of King himself, he went into shock after he found that his son was basically the schemer. Because it was hinted that he died in an accident in Europe. So it's a really good 3-part story arc related to new character, and, well, that's simply it for this one. Absolute great epic collection. Can't wait to review Volume 6, which is going to get me past issue 100 for this series. Now, in the case of Masterworks Daredevil, unlike the previous volumes, which had like 11 issues, this one's got a lot. Volume 13 collects Daredevil 133 to 143, and number 4, and Ghost Rider Volume number 20. Of course, done by Mark Holman and Bob Brown. Bob Brown, the other writers, Arrow would be the majority writer of these issues, except for issue 140. He wrote that was Bill Mantlo. He would definitely have also Jim Shooter as a co-writer for issue 141, and Chris Kummer at the end. Bob Brown was basically the artist for the majority of the time, except for issues 136, 137. That's all right. John Bushma. Yep. So, Daredevil. Yep. This is basically during the era of all people, Marv Wolfman to be on the book. Yep. We have debuted this guy called the Mind Wave, who is not a very known villain. Yeah, he appeared for this one issue here, then he returns issue 319, where they kill him off along with a bunch of other villains. Yeah, so first appearing in 1976, makes a return 10 years later to get killed off. Yep, what a minor villain makes this issue debut in this issue here. Yeah, and they were basically doing these issues here who was behind the whole fake transmission about the Kennedy brothers being alive, and there's also something in here about we have Daredevil killing cops. Turns out it was actually fake. And who was the mastermind behind this whole entire plot? It was the Jester. Yep, the Jester. Yep, he was one behind all this. Why? Because Daredevil beat him back in issue 46 as the title. Yep, all because he got beat by Daredevil. And we also bring back by the way, they also in here Marv premiere issues 39 and 40 against a 2-part Torpedo story, which Marv wrote. That according to what Marv wrote on the forward here, they throw the 2 issues here as a bonus. Even though it has nothing to do with Daredevil, it just features a Torpedo, which character is in the pages of Daredevil. Yep. Yeah, if you're curious, now the Jester himself is not in his traditional attire. Oh no, they changed his costume for some reason. Yeah, for some reason he looks like this now. Yeah, here's the Jester wearing a green outfit for some reason. Don't know why. And here's the question. Why did Mark Holman make him a guy who was simply put a C-list villain, making him the main villain this whole entire run? Eventually, Daredevil does find the machine that creates all this nonsense. He is taken down. At one point, you see it looks like Jonathan Powers, the original Jester. Where he apparently dies at the end of this story arc. Yeah, he gets defeated in issue 137. Yeah, then right afterwards, they bring back Death's Head. Yeah, the Remake Death said like very next issue. Mm-hmm. All because they crossover with, of all things, Ghost Rider. Yep. Yeah, he was. Yep. And after this, pretty much, yeah, with the whole thing 138, that's a crossover with Ghost Rider. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's continuing Ghost Rider, and then we're pretty much back here. Yeah, interesting. I'll throw in Ghost Rider. Yeah, and then of course we have where in the annual, which has to do with Submariner and Black Panther. They also mentioned his guest appearance in the pages of Iron Man issue 89. Yep. Yeah, really good stuff here when it comes to Daredevil. Mm-hmm. And then pretty much wrapped the crossover with Ghost Rider, which I get the reason why I threw in this Masterworks trade because it would never make sense not to include it. And the reason why Ghost Rider is involved because Karen Page gets kidnapped, even though Matt is dating Heather, he wants to go save her because he does care about her. And at the end of this two-parter, they basically come away as friends. Like, he just not really interested in the moment to get back together with her. He does get back to her years later in the 90s. Mm-hmm. Well, he dates her for a long time. But it's an excellent crossover. Mm-hmm. Yep. And there's also something in here with him, with Johnny Blaze and Roxanne, where it looks like they break up, but they come back together later on. At one point, Johnny Blaze and Roxanne are married and had 2 kids, and it's implied that they're dead. Yes, as for what that caused their deaths, I have no idea. Yeah, and then we have the return of the Daredevil annual, because the last 2 reprints, we have annual 4, which is basically the first regular one in years. So yeah, this annual here just really good. I think this is the first time Daredevil met with Submariner since issue 7 of the title. Yeah, since issue 7. And Black Panther, first time out for him. But great stuff here. Yeah, and then of course basically 139. Yeah, just various other stuff happened here. Mm-hmm. And then you have 140. We have rematch with the Beetle and the Gladiator. This of course is a reference to the one he met up with, of all people, Man Thing. It's sort of follow up to that story there. Oops. Not one there. Thank you. You asked for why in the world they decided to bring back the Beetle. I don't really know. And then basically 141, Return of Bullseye. Yep, in his 3rd air appearance. Yep, there's the cover for it, issue 141. Yeah, Marvel just brought him back just because he felt like it. Yep, great to see Bullseye again. And then we have, get this, then we have they have Mr. Hyde make a return to the book. Yep. And this, of course, just after he just took on Bullseye. Yep. So you can sort of call Mr. Hyde. And then in the final issue, then we finally deals with, it's just a 2-parter dealing with Mr. Hyde. This kind of when he wraps up Mark Wolfman's run for the title. Just really good 2-parter. And then we continue with the Torpedo 2-parter, which still puts a good 2-part solo story in the pages of Mar Premiere, which I highly doubt this is collected any place else. So it makes total sense Mar put this in here because May's debuting Daredevil, so why not throw this in here too? I mean, why not? It's a good 2-part. Torpedo is not a very known character per se, but it's always good to see this guy. Mm-hmm. Oh, by the way, the current one is a woman. Yep, it's a woman. Yeah, and by the way, this is just after his appearance in Daredevil 134, excuse me, yes. And then after this two-parter, he next appears in Defender 6-2 as part of the Defenders for a Day stuff. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Defenders for a Day is just a quick three-parter. And he pops up for the final issue of Machine Man. Don't know why, but he does. But yeah, always great to see him. You also see the fact he's also a good family man in this two-parter. Yep. Yeah, then pretty much after those three-parter issues for Defenders, and of course Pierre Martin on the number 3. After that, he basically was pretty much became a supporting character in Rom until his death. Yep. But yeah, this book, really good. Get this book a 10 out of 10. Just really good book here. Okay, so that's it, particular review. Next one's going to be Boruto, and then one more Comic Corner, and that'll probably be a video snack. Okay, next video. Bye.